Yeah. All right, we're live, this.
Claude.
Hey, Steve, are you there? Yeah, good, buddy. How you going?
Yeah, good, mate. Good. We're a little bit late again. Maybe 7:30 is more our slot than 7. By the time we get around to it.
Yeah. Do we have a slot? Do we? No, man. It's just whenever I'm available.
Whatever works.
What's been happening this week?
Oh, mate, I've had a crazy week. Crazy week.
Yeah.
Work's been busy. I had a good chance with a few of the guys in Queensland.
Yeah.
The guys in States about hockey and stuff like that, which is good. I think there's a bit of momentum in what we're talking about, which is great. It's good to hear.
Yeah, that's good, man. That is good.
Yeah.
Well,
It works.
It is. Yeah, I've had a fair bit of feedback. Yeah. I've had a few messages from, especially some of the ones that I was a bit surprised, like, a couple of people from Chile and Argentina.
Oh, really?
Yeah, just a couple of private messages, like,
hey,
it's good.
Your hair being dyed, or
whether I'm still dyeing my hair and stuff like that, and how did I manage to get a haircut while I was in lockdown?
How do you do that? I haven't had a haircut in months, but anyway, yeah, keep going. Sorry.
And a few people from Catalonia. Just a couple of little messages, a couple of the big boys.
The big boy.
All jokes aside, they're just like say, like, it's good to sort of have something, and listen to a bit of crap. And actually, while that on the feedback sort of things, really enjoyed the chat that we have with Russell, man.
Russell is a legend, and
I for one stage there, I thought it was Russell Crowe, but Russell, it was great that he gave us some of his time. A couple of good stories there.
I saw some commentary around how he really just helped, I suppose, reunite some people back into the sport.
Yeah,
and not just some comments, I mean, how deep they go, how wide they go, I'm not sure, but Russell's very passionate. He loves the sport. He's a big friend of Australia, and I think that's fantastic that he came on. He spoke about what he loves, and let's hope that he's inspired a few people. I think there's some big news also coming out of New Zealand. And as you and I know, we touched base with our good friend Rob Basie, and
we're going to try to get him on, aren't we?
Yeah, get him on, have a chat with him. Right, he's got some stuff happening over there, which is really of interest for us in Australia. So that's great. That's going to be awesome. So Rob, I know you got a few projects happening, you got a bit of stuff happening, but when you put Rob Basie's name and you put roller hockey together, shit happens. Right?
Yeah, something might happen. Yeah,
something happens. Yeah. Something always happens. So that's good. That's good. So
that is good.
So once he's got a few things settled, then we'll bring you on and have a chat to him about it. So
and what's happening today? What are we going to talk about?
Topics I want to touch.
Yeah, I wrote down a couple of things.
Yeah. So we've got Kos Galtos coming on. So he's the England president.
Cosy.
Good old Cosmo, our friend of Australia. He's actually Australian, but we'll deep dive into what he's doing. But in all seriousness, mate, he's done some great stuff in England.
It'll be good. It'll be good to ask him some of those questions and so he can share it with us.
We'll interrogate him a little bit. We'll also raise a few of the old photos and a few of the old pictures.
Eyebrows raised, like
in relation to who we remember Kos to be. But we'll bring him in. We'll hear what's happening in Europe. I mean, Europe are moving forward, right? Aren't they?
Yeah.
They've got world championships. They've got Euro championships. They're doing stuff. So Kos is very tapped into that. And that's important for us because, they're ultimately leading, our sport. So we want to know what's going on there. That's good.
Yeah, no, definitely. We want to know, but definitely want to know. But one of the other things that I sort of wanted just to touch on you with you as well, Steve, is we were talking about the other day, and I thought it'd be good to sort of touch base on some of the contribution bits. When people, we've how we've been recognizing some of the people that contribute with the Les Carrion award.
Yeah. I mean, we're an amateur sport. We don't really have funding. We don't have sponsors all that much other than, some small token stuff here and there. So it goes back to the people within the sport to make a difference, right? Let's be honest. Those that sacrifice their time and whatever it might be are the ones that make the sport great. And and in Australia, we have a history of some great people. And, back in, I think it was 2013, 2014, we started the
13, I think it was.
Was it?
I think it was 13, the first one.
Yeah, the Les Carrion Award. So the Les Carrion, I'll just let me just bring up a visual here, right? Just so we're on the same page here, right? Just bear with me a tick.
And while we're there as well, when you're looking for that, I mean, who have received the award?
Yeah, we'll get to that. So let's just reflect a little bit on why this award was created. So our good friend, and you and I know this. We know this very, very well. Our good friend unfortunately passed away, Les, and but what we wanted to do was honour him, but also honour the sport in creating this award. And that was really looking back in time and going, who are the people in the last 5, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years that have contributed to building our sport? So, the Les Carrion Legend Award is the thing that we created. Now, when this, what you can see on the screen here, was created, it was really talking about, let's recognize those people and let's identify them in a couple of competitions each year. One was, this Ray Day Cup, and one was in the Champions Cup. What really happened was once a year, which we did, with this Ray Day Cup, we actually had those awards announced. So twice a year didn't really make sense. It was more like twice a year. So, but it's something that's been acknowledged as a great thing, and I think, Claude, we should think about having it, just continuing to do that, right? I mean, 2020, 2021's have been sort of, shafted with COVID and all the rest of it. But but there's still a lot of great people that have done stuff, haven't they?
Yeah, I know. So some of the so who was Eddie Carrion? Yeah.
So we think about
Eddie.
Yeah, so we've had formally speaking, we've had 7. We've had 7 legends,
recipients. Yeah,
recipients of this award, right? And it's Eddie Carrion, obviously father of Les, great man, came in from Egypt,
contributed a lot to coaching and hockey.
Yeah, the hockey side of things was the thing that he was recognised for, and it was very appropriate. But he's done a heap of stuff for Queensland, that's absolutely amazing. So that's Eddie. Then we've got
Chris Shah.
Chris Shah.
You had Chris Shah, obviously, Australian player.
I mean,
played in multiple. That's shifty for the people that might not know that actually his name is Chris Shah.
When I was younger and I played in the championship, and Chris did something. He did something. I don't know what he did. He did something, and I was a junior. Some guy goes, "That's why they call him Shifty." Like he just did something like incredible. I was like, that guy, wow, So, anyways, that's Shifty, and he's
and he also coached the Australia as well a couple of times that we were under.
Yeah, absolutely.
Then we had as well, a couple of referees that we acknowledged as well, and also players and they contribute as well with Michael Hurley.
Michael Hurley,
referee.
Michael Hurley was a great contributor. He refereed. He was part of the Australian Roller Hockey Committee, I believe. He did a heap
And
of
also,
work.
yeah, a bit of admin there as well back in the day. And also with the admin sort of things and refereeing, we had Ken Bradley.
Yeah, Ken Bradley. Ken Bradley was actually the chairman of Roller Hockey Australia, but I think he also became the chairman of Skate Australia at one stage.
Okay.
So anyone who puts their hand up and says, I'm going to do something within the support, in the sport and do stuff, you know,
yeah,
from my perspective, you know, thank you, you know.
Yeah. Who else have we had on? Well, not on.
So that's
Alan Rinke.
Alan Rinke. There you go. Alan Rinke, father of Keith Rinke and Des Rinke, was a legend in Queensland, primarily really building the sport, contributing to the sport. And look at the product that he delivered, right? I mean, Des. I think I might have played one game with Des. I'm not sure, but I've played a couple of games. We went to the World Championships with Keith, you know?
Yeah. Yeah,
And,
same. If I remember correctly, I mean, did Des like not wear gloves? If I remember correctly, because I remember that's when I first met him.
The old chop. Yeah.
That's when I first met him. He never used to wear gloves. And I think when I first met him, I could be wrong, but I know my memory is quite good. The national team, the Australian national team was going to Mexico back in the time, but that's when I first came to Australia. It would have been 1986. So if he was in that team, I would have met him there at the old Mordialloc rink in White Street, little shoebox. Right. And then we also had Ian Roach.
Roachy. You know Roachy, lovely guy. Roachy... sorry, just hang on a tick. Roachy was our representative at the Olympic Games, right? He actually refereed a hell of a lot on the at the Olympic Games, right? And they contribute a lot locally. I recall him as a junior coming through, always contributing, always being involved. So he was he was a great recipient of that award as well. Yep.
And also then we had Bill Shepherd. Now was Ian Roachy and Bill Shepherd were from South Australia? Were they both South Australians?
Yeah. Now Bill Shepherd was a little bit before our time, right? So you and I are in our 20s. That was we're born in 2001, 2002. Were you born in 2001?
Yeah. Millennial, yeah.
A millennial, there you go. So anyway, Bill Shepherd, you talk to Chris Shah, you talk to Eddie, you talk to Ashley Easterby, you talk to these people, and you go, who was it? There's a couple of other names, Peter Loopy and all these other people, right? But they talk about this guy called Bill Shepherd, and he was such a contributor, and he was such a legend within the sport. So he's that's absolutely fantastic,
So they're the seven.
That's been 7 years, right? So 7 years of individual nominations. It's called the Les Carrion Legends Award. They've done a great job in recognising. There's a process to go through that, so it's great.
Yeah, and there's still a lot of other people that could be recognised. They've done heaps. We could just probably just touch on. I remember writing some of these down, like obviously we've got Jamie Reid, Sandy Sherman.
Hang on. Sorry, just let me park you there for a second, right? Jamie Reid, which we want to get on the show, right? We want to get on this conversation. We just couldn't get him because he's in, fly out, and all this sort of stuff. So we're going to get him in the next week or two, right? Jamie has been the chairman, the state coach, the national coach, the team manager, the club coach, the referee accreditation, the club. So, you think about 30 years of contribution, and this guy's
worn a lot of hats.
He's worn a lot of hats.
A lot of hats, yeah.
A lot of hats. So good on him. Sorry, mate. Sorry, keep going. So who are some others?
I said Sandy Sherman, Lynette Bowman, Julie Redmond,
Julie. Yeah.
Everybody knows. Victorino Rodriguez, we had him saying hello from Portugal the other day and mentioning that,
he's done a hell of a
reminding us that he's also coached the ladies.
Yep.
Robbie Carter, Yeah, we've
Robbie.
got Sue Timms.
Robbie's on the fan. Sue Timms.
Yeah.
Sue Timms, a heap of stuff in Queensland.
Al Andrew.
Al, I mean, yeah, Al's our man, right? Al does
The
a heap
brew.
of stuff, right?
He's brew.
The brew.
Alan Brind.
Alan, yeah, Al did a heap of stuff in Queensland. Absolutely. So there's an ocean of people that have contributed to this sport. We're just going to recognise them and say thank you. I mean, it's an award. It doesn't do a hell of a lot other than he's a plaque or whatever. But
you know who else?
Who?
And it just keeps popping into my mind. I don't know, man. People, if I just probably say backhand Benny, does that like ring a bell? Benny Weber. Benny backhand Weber. Mate,
we grew up with Benny.
Exactly. I was just going to tell you, we grew up, I mean, and we owe a lot. I mean, personally, we owe a lot to Benny with helping us out, taking us to games. Remember, he used to take us interstate.
He drove me to Sydney. In
his Brock, in his VL Brock, I think it was the group. Yeah,
the Brock. That's right.
I remember one of Benny's like, we got to get him on. We got to get Benny on. Yeah, we got to get Benny on and get all the Benny-isms. But remember,
Benny and Chris,
the dynamic duo. Yeah, Benny and Chris. I mean, they're always here.
Those two guys, inseparable. We've got
actually, that'll be.
Those guys have some stories.
Yeah,
we've got to bring them on.
Yeah. I know. Yeah. No, actually, that'll be someone.
Yeah,
that'll be someone.
Anyway, so a lot of good people contribute to the sport. I'm glad we recognised it tonight, but I think we've got to keep going. And if it's nothing else but just saying thank you, it means something, you know?
Yeah, I know, yeah.
We've got to be grateful for that. We've got to be grateful for that.
And
we've
got to hear those stories.
We want to hear from other people, right? If you're online, if you're watching this, or if
you watch this later on,
send us. You know, there are people, you know, that Sam Dark, right? Like Trevor Dark. I'm just throwing out names here, right? This is the dad that drove the Warrnambool team up to Melbourne over and over again, up to Albury over and over. These are the dads that just said, get in the car, let's go, you know?
Yeah.
Week in, week out. If it wasn't for those sort of guys, they didn't have a team. But we have to acknowledge those people. And we need a whole new group of people to do that as well, right?
Yeah.
So, no, it's great. It's great. So anyway, that's some good people.
Yeah.
So
are we having Kos on?
Kos? Now, I just hope Kos is. I hope he's there's two things. I hope he's awake and he's tuned in. You know. Now, Kos, we know, is a good friend of Roller Hockey Australia. He's done a hell of a lot of work in England. He's got a very strong opinion on things. So the challenge for us is, can we contain him? You know, he's like a volcano that explodes from time to time.
He won't explode. He's all right. Cause he's all right. But you know what we got to do? You know what we got to do? Let's just stop talking about him. Let's go and get him. Did we go and get him?
How are we going to get him?
Let's jump on the jet, man. Get the RHA jet out.
The jet?
The plane, man. Where's the plane? Get the plane.
Ooh,
the plane.
I got to find the jet. All right, hang on. I got to find the jet. Where's the jet? All right. Well, Kos is, I'm not sure where Kos is. He's in England. I heard he's in Australia. I'm not sure where he is, but let's get on the jet.
Just punch the coordinates, man. Just punch the coordinates and it'll just take us there.
All right. Hang on. Let me find
Is the jet being filled up?
All right, let's go. Let's Kos.
I gotta go to the toilet again, man.
All right. Now, if we're gonna go see Kos, we've got to be up the front of the bus, right? I mean, Kos. If we're going to bring Kos back to Australia, it's got to be first class. He doesn't go in economy.
I know, man. It's just getting too loud, man. I think we should talk to him while we've got the airplane on so we could just miss him.
He's turned up. It is.
How you doing, guys?
How are you, mate?
You've kept
very
us
well,
waiting,
thanks, mate. Very well. Forgive my fluffy appearance. I thought if I got with this lockdown in Sydney where I am, I figured that my hair would thicken out, but I found out that was nonsense. So it's not happening.
Is that the current?
The back is long,
Yeah.
But off we go. Congratulations on your show, guys. I think you're doing a great job, and I'm enjoying watching Claudio more than Steve, frankly. Claudio, take over the show, man. Take over the controls.
I know. How you been, Cozzy? Haven't seen. Well, last time we saw you.
Yeah, good, mate.
When was that? When was the last time we actually saw you in person? Or I did. A couple of years ago.
I would have seen you maybe 4 years back in Melbourne, I guess, for Australia Day Cup or something like that. Although I've been in Australia since March 2020. I was in Indonesia and came down here for because of COVID, and then got locked in and haven't been able to get back to the UK since. And waiting to get myself back to England and in the very near future, hopefully.
Yeah.
Now, staying up late at night so Stephen Hoey can give me digs about not being awake when he calls.
Yeah, I know you don't operate until after 12 p.m. Australian time. I know.
I work UK hours, mate. That's what I do.
Now, Kos, we know each other very well for whatever. It's
teammates and flatmates, Steve. Let's just disclose that one straight away.
We actually shared an apartment for a number of years. But for those that don't necessarily know you, I think it's important that we put Kos Galtos in the context of roller sports in the world, right? And I'm going to touch on, if you don't mind, a little bit of your father and where he sort of fit in and things like that, because it's actually quite a unique situation where we've had someone within Australia actually in such a position and such a contribution to our sport, right? And not just our sport, but actually roller sports in Australia. So would you mind just giving us a little bit of context and talk about your father and Kos Galtos and what his job was?
Sure. Look, my father got involved in roller skating when he repossessed a roller skating rink and decided it would be a good idea to move the whole family there. And then told my mother after he did it. And that was the Inala skating rink. And
Inala was first, was it? Hang on. Inala was first before Mount Cravat.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Inala was first. He repossessed it off a tenant that hadn't paid his money and decided it was a good little business. And at the time, he had an investigation company, private investigators, repo guys, but maybe about 100 people or so. And he moved the headquarters to the Inala rink. So I grew up knowing how to answer the radio. As part of that journey, he got involved in the club side of the sport and with people like George Russell and Alan Rinke and Gordon Mellon, et cetera. And he went about forming the Australian Federation of Amateur Roller Skaters. And for 20 odd years, he was the president. I think it was 24 from memory. He also was the second vice president of FIRS, the forerunner to World Skate, for about 24 years.
Sorry. He was vice president of World Skate, was he?
Well, what FIRS at the time, Federation International of Roller Sports, but same thing.
What's known as World Skate, yeah.
He was a strong advocate of democracy and accountability and written rule, which led him to have lots and lots of fights with Spain, Italy, Portugal, particularly. But he held them to account and seemed to represent the interests of the small nations really, really well. You told me earlier I can't go political, so I won't go into the detail of that beyond. I'm a big advocate for democracy, and all the nations of World Skate should carry an equal voice. Yeah. So he did that for a long time. Mount Cravat was opened, I think, in 76 or 77. And the Mount Cravat Club. And when I was in 1980, the family moved to Mount Cravat. And we left the Inala skating rink to other things, to other people. And just as my father was reducing his involvement, and this is probably timely, Mick Stocks died this week, passed away. Mick Stocks was the first person outside of my family that I can recall that got me into the organization of roller hockey competitions. At age 15, I decided there was no competition for seniors to play in across Queensland. There was nothing. There was a state championship. So I decided to organise the first Southeast Queensland Roller Hockey League. And Mick had to give me a sanction for it as the Queensland Hockey VP. And I wrote something that was 2 pages long. And he sent it back. And then it became 3 pages, 4 pages, 6 pages. And with another person who was instrumental in this, Ian Hobbs, who was the head of referees, I believe, at the time.
Hobbsy.
It was the most perfect-looking sanction application ever, all done on a typewriter. But what it did was taught me the value of having written rules that everybody could understand and operate within. Right? It's really important. You can't just have, he said that, John said that, blah, 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 right? And that stood with me for a long time. So my involvement, I was born into hockey. I can't remember not being able to skate. I did speed, and I believe I did artistic, but I have no memory of that. And ran roller skating rinks.
Now we'll get your skating abilities a little bit later. All right, we'll get there. We'll
get to that, Kos.
It'll be good if you have any photos of me playing or skating. That would be interesting because I don't have any.
I know. So talk to us a little bit about. I want to show you something, Kos, which is a bit of a famous photo in the roller hockey world, right? I hope it comes up. And tell us who's in this photo.
Okay, so Chris Raggett on the right, my father in the middle, and the Premier of Queensland, Joe Bajelki-Peterson, receiving an autographed hockey stick at the Stafford rink, which I'm sure he would have used once. It's
quite a powerful photo, right? Joe Bajelki-Peterson is actually quite a recognised figure in Australia, right? How did your dad connect with that?
Oh, well, Dad was an active person in the Inala community and within sports. He was also the president of the Queensland Police Youth Welfare Association that set up police clubs across Queensland, and that inspired other states to do the same. He got the first sports grants in Australia of any state or federal government for roller skating from the Queensland government shortly after getting that free hockey stick, so it must have resonated somewhere. I think as a kid I wanted to take possession of it. But the Premier of the state was a regular visitor to national and state championships in Queensland while Dad was president. He engaged with him in what was a Labor Party area. Bajelki-Peterson was from the Conservative side of things, but it wasn't about that. It was about what was good for the community, what was good for kids, what were good for people. Yeah. So there's plenty of times. I remember Bajelki-Peterson also got a parchment scroll with a handwritten thank you from in about 1981 from the Australian roller sports.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah, it was beautiful. It cost a few $100s at the time to have signed written up on proper parchment, and it's because of the grants that were being received. No other sport had them. In fact, many of them complained.
Well, mate, for what it's worth, your father was a massive contributor to the sport, and everyone who has been part of the sport for a period of time understands that. The Galtos family, your brother has been involved as, professional roller hockey player living in Europe. And obviously you're been playing, coaching, but now you've taken that next level and you're the England president of roller hockey, which if my facts are correct, is the oldest federation in the world. I think England the first federation. I think England actually created roller hockey.
It was invented at Crystal Palace, and some of the first players were Laurel and Hardy and Charlie Chaplin and people like that.
Yeah,
and like all sports, it is, isn't it? But people forget this. Once upon a time, bloke organised a competition of people playing hockey on skates. And then some of those people didn't like how it was being run, so they moved it and did their own at Alexandra Palace, which is on the other side of town, right? Yep. And then some of those people broke away from that and created their own league and their own league and their own league. And then what happened was that those different leagues selected a team of the players who played in the league at their venue to play against each other. And eventually that went into being who's the champion of England. And it built up into regions like states, and then a national governing body. And the first international was England, Ireland, and France.
Mm. There you go. It's amazing.
I can sell you a book for it, mate. The association makes it.
You gave me the book. I still have your version of the book.
That's where it is, Gussie. That's where it is.
That's where it is.
Great. I wondered where my 3 copies went.
Where's my library here? Actually,
see that. Wait a second. See that back table that he's got? It's levering that table.
Oh, right. Well, there's a new version, a second version of that book. There's a second version of that book that goes from when the date ended on the front cover to about 1980 as well.
Yeah.
Oh.
So it's interesting. I mean, I think England has a lot to be proud of, but we've got a long way to go to get back to where we were. England used to be successively the world champion in post-World War II, mostly because they lost the venues, the warehouses were bombed in the war, people decided to do other things, et cetera, so skating rinks became warehouses, right, for the war effort.
Yep.
It came off its pyramid, and other countries that weren't really engaged in the war, Spain, Portugal, South American countries, rose beyond that, you know?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
But it tells an interesting story.
No, it does. So tell us a little bit about, so you're the president of the England Roller Hockey Committee, right?
Mm-hmm.
What's happening? What's happening in Europe? Obviously, you're tapped into Europe. We're a little bit distant. We've got some connection. We don't know the day-to-day. You're right in the center of it, you know? It's COVID. There's some challenges with competitions. There's some challenges with whatever. Just give us a European lens. What's happening?
Okay, so first of all, as you know, Stephen, I was president of Queensland Hockey at a pretty young age, and in 19.
Is that when you had a mo?
Thanks, mate.
Because we'll get to that. We'll get to that.
No, don't you dare! Don't you dare show that photograph.
Like you had a mo back in those days.
No. I love my sport, but don't you dare show that photograph of me.
I don't know. I just couldn't find. I'm not sure if it could be there somewhere. I'm just not sure.
Just remember, mate, I have my own photos, and I'm linked into your kids on Facebook. All right. Right. Gee whiz, now you've put me off beat. So, you know, I served as the Queensland president of hockey for some time. And when I got to England in 96, I played for a little while with a club called Letchworth under the current national coaching director, Carlos Amaral. And I did my stints visiting Nick in Switzerland and all that stuff, as you know, with Les Carrion and stuff. In about 2000, I joined the executive committee of the National Roller Hockey Association, as it was at the time, doing competitions and then marketing. And then I returned to Australia briefly in 2007 through to 2013. And when I got back shortly after, I took over responsibility for running referees in the country and sorting out the coaching accreditation and testing system. And on the retirement of the long-term president, Keith Allen, who served, I think, for 22 or 24 years in the role. There were elections, and I decided it was a bit early for me. I wanted to wait another 3 years, but as events unfolded, I stood for that election, made a series of promises as to what I'd deliver. And proudly, my 3 years term comes up in July, and everything on this A4 page has now been delivered bar one thing, which is a skate rental program, but it will be delivered by the time of July.
So you've been in the role for 3 years?
No, 2 and a bit now, right? I'm in my final year of the term. One thing I want to say before we proceed this is you don't have to be paid to be professional.
Yeah.
Right? We forget that, right? Particularly in the 21st century with the tools that are at our disposal, like you're using right now to get this message, this stream out there. Yeah. What you do need is you need motivated volunteers. Because nothing that's been achieved in England is because of just one person, not one thing. I have a fantastic executive team and structure, and unlike Australia, I have finances. Next to no government grant. In fact, we got our first grant since 1984, 10 months ago.
Really?
Okay, because someone bothered to apply.
Yeah.
But what we do have is we have direction and clarity of where we're going, and good people who work really hard. So before proceeding with that, one other thing I want to point out, we need to encourage a culture of encouragement in our sport, not criticism. Any idiot can criticize. It's like the 2 old men on the balcony in the Muppet Show, you know? Ask them to do something, nothing, right? So my first job was to ignore that. I don't care what people on the balcony say.
It's hard to do that. But anyway.
You're human, right? It hurts. Right. And I'd be a liar to say if there hasn't been any conflict in England trying to change what we've always done. The ancient Greeks had a great saying, tell me your problem. Once after that, I want to hear about the solution. I don't care what the problems were. I don't care what went wrong in 1984, 74, 94. Right. It doesn't move us forward.
We have a little bit of that. We have a little bit of that.
But so what we have in England is a committee structure, which I think works really well. We have a president, a general secretary, a treasurer. Yep. We then have a marketing executive, a competitions executive, and I've got to remember them all now, and a coaching executive.
Don't leave anyone out, mate. I tell you what, you won't be back in 6 months' time.
Well, yeah, good luck. Anyone who wants it, I can find a job for them, and if I don't get it, I'm still happy to participate helping, right?
You're right.
I'm in this for life. So it was coaching and referees. Now that team meets every month via Zoom. And we put a big effort in at the beginning of my term of office to clarify the rules in writing via written bylaws, so everyone knows where they stand and what their job is. And they're accountable for it. But also it stops the micromanaging of the committee of someone else's departmental function. Why would you ask a volunteer to go do something, spend 20 hours of work on it, and someone who's looked at it for 5 minutes countermands it? That does not facilitate motivation.
So let's bring it up a level.
Clear balance of authority, clear direction.
Yeah, it's absolutely right. Now, what we from Australia have observed is a bit of a shift, right? There's a little bit of a shift, and let me just bring this up to help facilitate my thinking when I say there's been a shift, and it's really simple. Just bear with me.
You need an assistant, Steve.
I know.
Where's Alan?
Or maybe Claudio could do it properly. This might should be your program, Claudio.
It is, mate. And I was going to say, what do you mean we're not getting paid? Am I not getting paid for this, Steve?
Oh yeah, it's our sponsors are there's some product placement. There's some product placement happening. So, Kos, you see this photo? You see this picture?
What is this, Steve?
Yeah, it's more my question. What is this, Kos?
Okay, so this is where my corporate background comes in, guys. This is a marketing device, which is the England line, which is carried in our full logo, which we're developing, but it allowed us to proceed. We have some issues where we're trying to work out whether we call ourselves rink hockey as Worldscape wants or roller hockey as we all know it. Yeah. And therefore, things cost money and you don't want to be going back over things. So we started off with this device and we're building around it. Basically, 2 crossed hockey sticks. You can see the eyes of a lion or at least a cat, hopefully, with a little mole here, which is the ball. Andy Whitten, our marketing exec, the head of the marketing committee. I keep telling him I'd like to have a skate underneath it. But, when you ask someone to bake you a cake, you don't go buy them the ingredients, do you?
Is Andy available to come online, you reckon? Should we get him on?
So. Blake does about 40 to 60 hours a week worth of roller hockey work, plus his own club in Sheffield in the northeast of England. But, he's a professional photographer, so he's always available, right? He mostly works weekends. So where were we? Yeah, so that's the cover, or one of the cover pages of the first ever annual report for the association.
You've rebranded England rink hockey. Yeah. Now that's a bit of a ballsy move for a federation that's been around for 100 years.
Yeah. Well, Steve, quite frankly, mate, after watching Roller Hockey Australia's TV coverage and some of the good stuff you guys have done in Australia, I have a lot of English people who know we can do a better job than you. Right? And we're competing because so we've Australia likes to tease English people. I love to tease English people, though it's my home, right? But I tell you what, they're competitive just as much as any Australian, and they want to do a better job growing and marketing our sport than Australia does. But the difference,
can you remind me who's your marketing manager? Who's your marketing manager again?
Andy Whitten. But the difference in our attitude now is we want to help everybody else too. We don't want to do the thing of it's all ours, we're not sharing. Yeah. Whatever we do, Australia's free to have. Anyone's free to have. We'll give you the original Word files. Have our coaching accreditation that's going online next week or so. Have our referee accreditation. Have it. Now, if we can work together like England is with Euro, which I'm sure you'll talk about later, then we want a two-way sharing process. We don't have all the answers.
Have you got Andy's email? Because I'd like to hear from Andy on this. I'd like to invite him.
I sent it to you, didn't I, before?
Oh, maybe. I don't know.
You're on an email I sent to him. You'll see it.
Sorry, keep going.
It's marketing@englandrinkhockey.com.
Oh, is it
again, unified email presence, position-based email. So the email account goes with the role holder, so people don't have to find out who the new guy in the role is when things change. Right? Yeah. Simple, transportable, keeps organization more efficient.
Yeah, are you going to try to get him on, Steve? Are you, or?
Yeah. Just keep Kos moving while I just trying to find this.
I'll keep discussing the marketing thing if you want.
Yeah.
No. What do you brand? You know, like the why and the benefit. I mean, I really love it. Right, I'm a brand and a product guy. Right.
Sure.
That's why we built Roller Hockey Australia. We built a brand. We built identity. It's doing stuff. Right, and people are gravitating towards that. So you know, you had me at hello, right, with what you're doing. And you and
it's the 21st century now, man. It's the 21st century.
We're interested
keep on. Huh?
We're interested to hear. We're interested to hear what's that knock-on effect. You know, the positives, and there's probably a few negatives. There always is in England.
Well, look, I tell you what, COVID's been rough for everybody, right? And in the UK, unlike Australia, there's been a hell of a lot of deaths. So it's a pretty serious problem. And a lot of seniors haven't been able to train for over 2 years. They couldn't gather in groups of more than 6 people. And we saw over COVID an attrition of mostly senior and veteran age players. Yeah. Kids could come together in small groups, dividing the floor in half, et cetera, et cetera. But we also saw one club recruit over 400 new players. One club. One club. 400 players is what we call training only, what you probably call insurance only, or the non-competitive registration that Scott Australia has, of which they're going to, and they've done a fantastic job in the south of England in a place called Farnham, and we've got 200 registered with the association. We expect that will grow over the course of the year. But anyway, the bottom line was before COVID, we had 850 players in the UK or thereabouts. We lost a couple hundred seniors because we had a lot of older players, and the recruitment effort that had started taking place 10 years ago, which led by Keith Allen and Carlos Amaral, was just starting to bite. So we have this large number of under 15s and under 17s, probably about 150 of each in each of those two grades, which are just a little bit too young to come into the senior side of things. So we got to really look after our seniors, but the focus is on recruitment of kids. But just even though that, we're seeing registrations come in this year that lead me to believe that we'll break 1,000 players this season.
How does that compare to the rest of Europe?
So Euro is currently the Union of European Roller Hockey Nations, the amateur countries in Europe, are currently pulling together a list of all the registrations by international age grade for publication between their members, and then see what we're going to do with it. So I can't, since I'm organising that, I can't just tell you what they got. But England's toward the top of that with Switzerland, though basically 80% of England's members are under the age of 18, whereas the other associations seem to have it the other way around.
Right.
And for me, that's not particularly healthy. We need 80% of our sport to be kids so that we have a future. Now, we get stickiness of adults who'll keep playing until whatever circumstance. What's been interesting is because we automated our registration system to an online tool, we can see how long people are staying in the game.
Yep.
And our attrition rate, we always used to think that it's juniors, under 20s that the attrition rate happens to. It's only because there's so few of them. You notice it.
Yeah.
As in terms of percentages, the attrition rate is exactly where it should be. Under 11, under 13. The ideal age for recruitment activity is children in primary school under the age of 13. They're going to come, they're going to try something out, they're going to change their mind. My kids did the same thing. I'm sure yours did too in some things. Perfectly natural. But the funnel has to start somewhere, and it's primary schools. Right?
So
I set myself the goal that within 4 years we'll have 2,000 players in the UK.
2,000 players. Wow, that's great, and that's good, right? I mean, I mean, Claude, just take a look at the chat and see who we've got online. But whilst we do that, Kos, talk to us a little bit about this. I think this is great from what I've seen, right? But we want to understand what this means.
Sure.
Right? You've done a partnership. You've created a deal. You've done something for the sport, right? Tell us a little bit about.
Okay. First of all, I said before, you don't need to be paid to be a professional. Right?
Yep.
But I tell you what, the activity of hockey, growing our sport, is limited right now by the amount of money of willing volunteers prepared to give of their own.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's always going to result in a limit to what can be done.
So who's Swift? Tell me, I know who Swift is, but can you explain to those?
Yeah, so it's part of a bigger strategy. This is a whole holistic strategy we're bringing in place. And one of them is to get Australia, it's just so people understand Australia. The only difference in the way the organisation of hockey in England is to Australia, principal difference, is that in Australia, you pay your money to Skate Australia, and a very small percentage of the registration fee goes to hockey to support its objectives.
Yeah.
In England, the average senior pays £52 to register, about $100, and the association gets the whole lot. Of that, we pay about £13 for the insurance. So that's about, $25 out of 100. So we're left with $75 per senior to be able to run the organisation and do things. That's why our National League for kids doesn't cost any money at all to participate in. Right. Now, the Swift deal is part of this. I contacted all the equipment manufacturers. Yep. Swift was the only one who called me back, interestingly enough, disappointingly, right? Yep. Because the focus of the manufacturers is the major professional nations with large markets. Yeah. Swift is a newish kind of company. It's run by, I believe, the ex-ops director of Accenture, I think was one of his former roles. So he's a smart guy of a corporate background. And we had a discussion about growing the market. And we spoke about if there's more play, you can compete over a defined market, which is contracting, because it is, in Spain, Portugal, Italy, or you can help us to grow the market and be the leader in the market by giving us certain things we need, but will be reasonable. So the basis of the deal we came up with was all of our national teams get the floor players get knee pads and gloves.
Yep.
Which I find amazing, because the old version used to be 120 grams for a glove. Now it's like 70 grams. It's nothing like when I played. We didn't get goalkeepers uniquely for the pads for the goalkeepers. We got 4 sets of goalkeeping pads, gloves and
chest pads.
Chest pads.
That's not the focus of the sponsorship. What we then got was a quantity of balls, so that every national competition played in England will be played with a newish Swift ball, which has the logo brand on it, so people can't steal the association's balls. The England team trained with Swift balls have been branded up. The England Academy, which is a 5-level setup with the first 3 levels held regionally, where we're starting to coach local coaches through our national coaching director, Carlos Umral, to share the skills and spread the skills of how to do it more widely, much like your states. But the costs and profits come into the center of the national organization, and then they're equally distributed to the regions. So the smaller regions will get the same amount of money as the bigger region, right? Because it's in our interest to have a whole country being better.
When was the last time?
There's some branding.
Yeah. So when was the last time England had? I'm going to say it's a sponsorship, but it's a relationship with a
manufacturer
provider of hockey equipment.
Well, it depends on what you want to call a relationship. I call this a partnership. See, plenty of times England has benefited from getting some free gear from say TVD, who are now gone. They wear the free gear at the competition, create zero economic benefit for TVD. In fact, the gear goes into the market in the UK, and then they sell even less. Right. By the way, our gear, we don't allow the players to play with it in our national league system.
Why is that?
They're not allowed to wear the gear they get for England for anything except training and for and for representing England. So it doesn't erode the market for the suppliers as well, and puts a value on it. But basically, mate, never. We've had those equipment sponsorships, but not as part of a strategic joined up plan. Because where the big one comes from, the sponsorship, is an offer to clubs, which we're about to put out, which is to have a deal direct with Swift where they get a significant discount on the purchase of a club range of equipment. And the idea is that the club goes out, gets a matching kind of equipment. The club sells that to its players or fundraisers for it. And they all wear one kind of knee pad, one kind of glove. They look like a team. They're part of something. The association gets a small percentage of the sales that go on that. And then the association also has a significant discount on the direct purchasing of Swift equipment for our recruitment program. So I said before, we've had 2 grants in the last 10 months, both £15,000, so about $30,000.
That's huge. That's for a small sport.
Yeah. It was interesting. It's from a charity called UK Youth, which is there to help kids through the COVID pandemic. Nothing to do with sports.
Yeah, right? Just help.
Because when a kid becomes a referee or a kid attends a program with a coach, that's an outreach program that can affect the psychology of the child.
Absolutely.
Right? It's positive. When a kid stands to be the secretary of their club and learns how to chair a meeting or do the accounts, that's giving them something for their future. So we sold it in that way. Anyway, of that 15,000 odd pound, we're going to be launching a school recruitment program at primary schools. Because it's a limited amount of money and there's a lot of kit to buy, we'll probably break it down to 3 or 4 programs with the motivated coaches. But we're going to pay for the coaches to attend the sessions too. So a 6 or 12-week program. We can't ask volunteers to do everything for free. It's just stupid. We're doomed to failure if we keep on relying on people. And the other thing is, you can be a great person for the sport to help it, but you may not have the money. Why should your economic situation prevent you from helping us grow our sport?
Yeah.
Right. So we got to address that. But it's a time of change, right? It's a time of change in England, and all change is painful in some way, shape, or form.
That's good, Kosy. Hey, Kosy, before we move on, because I want to ask you a couple of different questions, but I just wanted to touch on the academy. How long have you guys had the academy going for?
I think Carlos Amaral established, again, Carlos Amaral is our national coaching director, former coach of Porto in Portugal. He's lived in England since about 95. Carlos set that up in 2000, I think from memory, 2006 or just slightly after that. We have about 200 kids every month attending somewhere in the country, one of these programs. And they all have a really nice shirt and shorts and a uniform they wear. He's got a curriculum that's been established. We're more than happy to share the curriculum, the levels with Australia, so you can create your version of a similar thing. It works really well. The kids pay £15 to attend a 3-hour session. So that's about $30 for a 3-hour session. And a lot of them attended every single month, month in, month out, and a series of summer camps as well.
And now with this academy, is it just for obviously learning hockey, or are we also talking about in the academy, are you guys running referees? Are you running coaching?
It's a good question. Okay, so historically the academy, or under its previous name, was just about the players. But what we're trying to do now is we're saying, okay, so just so you know, Carlos Amaral is paid a retainer and keeps the profits from these sessions, or had kept the profits from these sessions, as part of his deal with the association. So he gave a paid person's job to make hockey grow, and it's worked. Right? No single figure has done more to get more kids playing and staying in English roller hockey in the last 20 years. Right? There are other people who've contributed. The clubs are doing great, but he's done an amazing job. And this is where bringing in the profit motive, it makes sense. So long as it's controlled and it's with their program. But what we're expanding the program to be, basically, and this is direction, we're heading there, is that Carlos will sit as national coaching director over the top, who will write the curriculum, and regional head coaches will deliver the curriculum with an assistant. And those regional head coaches will be paid for the sessions they do, and their assistants will get something, maybe 30, 20 pounds, $60, $40, something like that, right? but it shows a bit of respect. Yeah. And we'll do that in the 3 regions of England and get it to grow. Right now, our level 4 and 5 is held in the center of the country. And as we get more participation, we'll move that to the other regions. So it's a regional program. But we're going to also invite coaches to come. And as part of our coach accreditation program, where they need to do practical hours, they can rack those practical hours up by helping under the academy system.
Yeah.
And at some point, we'll evolve the refereeing thing, but we use the tournament head referee more to educate, motivate, and protect referees.
So Carlos is such a contributor, right, to England. And I've known Carlos. So I've seen Carlos, 20, 30 years, right? He's sort of one of those guys that at some point you'd need to build a statue for him, right?
Well, we're on our way. We're on our way. At our general meeting in July, Carlos was made a life member of the National Association. And as I wrote to the people in World Skate Europe and the Portuguese Federation at the time, this is a tremendous honor. Not only is an honor to be made a life member, he's the first non-English born person to ever be made a life member of the association in England. That's a huge thing. Maybe I feel it more because I'm a migrant too, right? But it matters. It means something.
Absolutely.
And it's the right thing.
Were you talking about? Well, I was going to say, were you talking about Europe there, Kos? I mean, give us a bit of info. I mean, what's happening in Europe? Like, I mean, just a couple of the things. For example, we've heard that there's some rule changes and that type of stuff. I mean, what's going on? I mean, what's your insight? Have you got any insight with that?
Okay, so deep in my mind, Claudio, right now, I've got Steve telling me not to make this go political, but also the thought that he's going to flash a photo up of my mustache, so I want to get it back to him somehow.
It's coming, don't worry.
It was a dreadful mustache. Anyway,
you loved it, man. I think it even
let's break it into 2 pieces. Let's break it into 2 pieces, okay? The first thing is that in Europe, at a governance level, it's a closed shop. The only people who run roller hockey are Spain, Portugal, and Italy. That's it. You can't get on the committee unless you kowtow.
Don't get too political.
If you disagree with them, it doesn't matter. They'll just ignore you. And ultimately, the president for Europe of all skating sports just tells them what to do, because if they don't do what they're told, he'll remove them and put someone else in. Okay? It's not working. So a group of all the amateur countries in Europe, excluding France, so England, Switzerland, Germany, Austria, Holland, Belgium, Israel, and Andorra have joined together to form an association of equals to represent our interests, because we're not being listened to try and get the rules changed. But more importantly, if it's meant to be, it's up to me. There's no point us sitting there going, World Skate needs to help us and us do nothing. We want a representative committee of all nations governing our sport so we can all contribute to help. We don't expect Spain, Portugal, and Italy to do the heavy lifting.
Because just take a breath for a second. So are you saying that all of those other countries are not part of the organising committee for rink hockey in Europe?
Yeah, none. The last one to leave was the Germans, and the Spanish representative on the committee resigned some months ago. So basically, it's Portugal with a couple token Italians.
But you're just talking about the European sector of it.
Yeah,
you're not talking about okay.
The system under the World Skate Constitution allows for the same to happen everywhere. Okay, right. Appointees who don't listen to the members. Okay, so therefore we have some issues over the rules of the game. But on the positive side, we've just announced competitions for under 17 male and female, under 20, which is a different age group to what World Skate want, which is under 19, which works great in the pro countries, but not in the amateur. Under 23, which they have in the rules. Yep.
I was going to be a bit smart, but are you telling me that you can do that? You can not do a 19, you can do under 20s?
Well, it's a competition organized by countries. It's not a World Skate event. We're all World Skate members and intend to continue as such. But what we need is, there's no point. So you guys get this, but you don't get it. When you turn up at a European Championship to play the Spanish and the Portuguese, and you get on the floor as a kid who's never even played in National League, and even then you're kind of the best from your country, and the ball is moving so fast that you want to vomit, right? Yeah, and your head starts spinning, and then you got to sit there and take the goals for 2 halves, not just the first half, which would be more than enough. Even though I want to play the best in the world as often as I can, there's a point where you need to play people of your own ability so you can develop and grow. Okay?
Yeah.
And so therefore, we're creating these headline events for our national teams of amateur nations, which Australia and everybody else who's amateur is welcome to come to as they want to, right? It's an open sort of tournament so that our kids and our seniors can play against people of roughly equal ability. It's a better spectacle. Okay. Yeah. But as part of that, we're trying to coordinate how we train our referees, how we train our coaches. But that's the second half that you came to, the rules. In my view, the rules of the game have been changed perfectly to favor the professional nations, which is a great shock when they're the ones who are on the committees. Okay. If you think about it, the one weapon a national side has, and I say this as a former England under-17, under-20 coach with 5 world championships and I think 9 Europeans under my belt. The one weapon you've got is defense, right? Once upon a time in Montreux, and I'm not sure if Stephen was there at the time, the current coach said, how do you score a goal against Australia? And he did it in French. And I didn't understand when everyone was laughing. And I said, how? And he went, you give them the ball. Then they counterattack, miss, and then you take it back and there's no defense to go through and you put it in the goal. Right? So what they've created with the system of rules that we have now is a kind of hockey where if you defend hard, you're going to rack up team fouls. So your opponent team who scores at maybe 70% versus your 20% or 10% will get a heap of penalties and direct free hits, which will allow them to win the game even if you defend hard. So you can't do it. The second thing is the shot clock. The shot clock forces you to shoot the ball. So you spit it up, even though it's you got more time. Normally, based on what I'm seeing on TV, 18 to 22 seconds. So you spit the ball up, there's more counterattacks and shock and surprise, more goals against amateur nations. Perfect. We've protected the pros forever from losing. Okay? Yeah. So I know that we've chosen not to implement the new rules this season in England and all the Euro countries because WorldSkate, despite 12 months of letters asking for clarification on the interpretation of the rules, very specific and detailed questions, has failed to respond. Right. But I saw one of your programs where you're talking about the kicking of the ball.
Yeah.
I think the interpretation in Australia, because you're so far away, makes it hard.
Oh, come on. Technology. The internet sort of works here too, mate. That's how it's too far.
Hey, mate. Hey, depending on what country you have a referee from in a game, it can be a very different outcome.
And that's what I said. That's what I said to Steve, because I mean, it gets lost. It gets lost in translation. The interpretation of the.
Let's park the rules for a second.
Easy.
Let's park the rules for a second. Let's park the rules for a second, right? I want to hear about England recently went to the Euros, under 17s, under 19s.
Under 17s. They did quite well, didn't they?
They. That's a good. It's a competition. I mean, we're talking under 17s. We're talking 15 and 16-year-olds. We're talking under 19s, 16, 17-year-olds, 18-year-olds, right? And that's so tell us about that experience for that crew,
It's very dear to my heart, actually, because that was the grade I coached, right? Under 17s, under 20s.
I've got this. I don't know if it comes out. I don't know if you can see it or not. But
Did you get a smaller one, Steve?
No, maybe not. I don't know. That's as good as it gets.
Look, I'm a big fan of the under 17 competition, and I remember me and Les Carrion as kids used to see that there was a European under 17 competition and wish that Australia could come and play. Yeah, because we didn't have anyone to play except the Kiwis, and back then the Kiwis weren't really functioning in terms of numbers at that level. Yep. And I remember when I coached that age group, players like James Taylor and stuff like that, I was so happy to be involved in it because I just would have chewed my arm off as a kid in Australia to play in that competition.
So before we
Of
get
course.
into the detail about your coaching of James Taylor, let's talk about this team. How
No,
did
I'm
these
trying
guys?
to tell you that it's important, and sometimes people take for granted what they've got and what they haven't got. Yeah.
Yeah.
That said, because of COVID, we weren't going to send a team because there were all sorts of risks and duties of care. But in the end, we decided to send a team. We have a great group of kids who've had years of coaching from Carlos Amaral, years of coaching. The one regret that I have, which we've dealt with from this season from March, is that for me, international competition is a reflection of your national league.
Yeah.
Right. And England hasn't had a national league for kids since 1999. And this year we're reintroducing national club competition for kids. Right. So I believe that the quality and experience they gain from playing tough matches at a club level and at what we call interregional, like the Australian Championship representing your states, will help us to take some of the edges off and improve our performance. But I thought they did magnificently well. My favourite match was the under-19s playing Italy.
I know. That was a pretty close match, wasn't it? Wasn't score
fantastic. But you know that again, Carlos Amaral, Stephen, when you went to go to Europe to play, I think you called my brother and a couple of other people to ask for a bit of help, right?
Yep.
Okay, who do you go to? Go to? Well, in England, you go to Carlos Amaral. He picks up the phone to one of hundreds of coaches around the professional world. And he says, look, I got this player. He's trained with me for X number of months. He's pretty good at this. He's not so good at this. Can you give him a spot? Speak of the devil, that's Carlos Amaral calling me right now.
Get him on!
Shut up, Kos! He says, shut up! Stop mentioning my name!
And remember, he used to coach Porto. He knows them all. Some of them are his ex-players. And he gets them a gig. So I think we have something like 12 kids under the age of 20 playing in second division level in the pro leagues.
Yep.
And I think there's 2 or 3 around at a higher level. And that's a good thing for bringing skills through.
Yeah.
Gives another question, Steve, since you're guiding my responses.
Is it that noticeable?
Just keeping you on there.
It's Steve's show, apparently.
It is.
Oh, no,
it is the Steve show.
I think it's the Claudio show, personally.
Now, I'm going to ask you a question which I can understand is a bit interesting or different or whatever. But England recently dropped out of the senior European Championships. What's happening there? And I saw Germany did, etc. So what's happening in Europe in relation to the senior championships? And sorry, let's start first. When is the senior championships? And then we can talk about why is England not participating.
All right, so November is the senior championship. The reason England isn't participating is we weren't able to get a team. The reason we weren't able to get a team is we haven't had 2 years of training. Right. We've had no competition for seniors, formal competition in terms of our national league, what we call our Premier League or Division 1 Senior League.
Okay.
And let's be really honest. Why would you go to play the 3 professional nations so that they can rack up the most number of goals they can get in a round robin competition?
I know.
Right. So when you've got to pay €1,000, €1,500 to turn up, and the other nations in Europe have decided not to, I can understand why a player concludes, save the money, go next year after I've had my league season. The question about Germany, my understanding is that the pressure was applied to their governing body. So like Skate Australia controls hockey the European model
and get political
the federation works different from Australia. So you got to understand that. In England, and I believe Germany and Switzerland, it's associations that confederate under one governing body, but each federation has 1 vote each.
Yeah.
Okay? It's different. My understanding is that the German Federation, whose president sits on another skating disciplines international committee, was led to believe that if they didn't attend, they would lose all their spots on international committees.
Right. Okay. So we're going to park the political stuff for a second.
You asked the question, Stephen Hoey.
I know, Steve. You asked him. I'm with you, Kos. You asked him.
I know.
Yeah, it's recorded, Steve.
But what England has a great opportunity is that you're obviously connected into the big clubs and you have a number of players in actually European clubs as well, right?
Yeah, like I'm saying, I think it's somewhere around 12 to 20 now. I have to do a proper count of it, but it's fantastic. And
That's
hopefully
awesome.
they'll come home and help their clubs, their original clubs.
And that is so good because I mean, I know we're talking about England and you guys and about you, Kos, but I remember personally, and Steve will probably back me up on this as well, and probably you as well,
Maybe
Kos.
not. Maybe not. I could not.
Growing up, I mean, sort of playing hockey and growing up in Australia, you want to go and play overseas, yeah?
Oh yeah.
And the opportunity that the English guys have got to go over to Spain, Portugal, Italy, or wherever it might be, it's amazing. And for us, it was like we want to go there. Everyone, I'm sure the players that I play with in Mordialek and whoever it was, everyone wanted just to go and have a season or go and train or get the opportunity to go and play over there. So that's something that is obviously a couple of the younger kids here now have experienced that. Like, you know, a couple of Mordy kids, a couple of Melbourne kids. You know, we've also had a couple of ladies from Brisbane that had the opportunity to go and play. But one of the things that I thought it was really good and beneficial for us that we were tapping into the players from overseas that come and study here.
Yep.
And we've been able to, like, you know, have players that have been in the OK Liga and a couple of Catalan players over in Queensland as well, that were actually, instead of going there to play and watch these guys play, they're actually coming over here and play.
Everybody wants to go to Australia.
I know.
That's
it's the big trip, right?
Now, Kos, I want to show you a photo, which is one of my favourite photos.
Just before you do the photo thing and we degrade into humiliating Kos, look, if any kid in Australia wants to play in Europe, okay, and you have to be of some ability, there's no guarantee that anyone can get you any clubs. The first one is you're always welcome in England, which is not the same as going to the Latin countries, but you're welcome to come to England. Second, anybody from Australia who contacts me or even the officers on the national committee will help them find a club in England and help them as much as we can. We don't have the money to pay anyone. We can't find you jobs. We might be able to find a job as a waiter or something because there's staff shortages in Britain now. But we'll do our best, and they'll be welcome to come to our development program. If the ability of the player is good enough, we can talk to Carlos Amaral about inviting them to the national training sessions that occur every month. All right?
Right.
We'll bend over backwards. If a referee comes to England who's properly accredited in Australia, we'll respect their accreditation level, and we'll give them a go at refereeing in our competitions too. Right? We want to share, we want to collaborate, we want to build. And the days of our way or no way got to be over, right? Yeah. Half of the work that's been done in England has come about because in Australia, you showed us that a little country with few players can do something really well like RHA TV. Yeah. And the streaming of the matches has inspired us to do the same, right?
Absolutely.
So we want to harvest your knowledge, and we're happy to give you what we got. Just like Amaral. You want to bring him to Australia? I'll get him to be available. Maybe the Kiwis will want to go 50-50, and he can do clinics and coach the coaches around the country, right? Maybe even if you want to come to one of the Euro competitions, the team comes and we'll do some tournaments the week before in England. So it's Australia versus England sort of thing. And then the following week, they can do the tournament and the Euro tournament of 4 or 5 days, and then maybe go play some Portuguese or Spanish clubs on their way out of Europe, right? Yeah. Nice, productive 3-week trip that doesn't cost you.
We've got to collaborate. We've got to work together. Yeah. And, mate, you know, the open hands that are coming from England and yourself, which I know is, you know, it's not just you, it's the committee, it's the federation.
Yeah, it's a whole philosophy.
Exactly right. You know, and that's in line with our philosophy as well.
Steve, what are you putting up?
Can you see this photo? Can you see this photo? I know it's not a great photo.
Yeah, it's small, but it looks like it's like a laundromat.
Can you see that?
Yep.
I love this. You know, I love this photo.
Why?
You know why I love this photo? Because there's 2 guys cleaning the under-17s and under-19s uniforms. And that is the backbone of our sport, right? Amateur countries. It's those that go, you go home and rest and you have your dinner. I'll go and find a laundromat and deal with this stinky uniform, right? And these guys are doing that. So I don't know who these people are, but I take my hat off to them. You know, we've got
That's
a few
the team
people.
manager and the assistant team manager of the under-19s team.
What's their names?
Jason Oldroyd, and forgive me, I don't know the second fellow's name off the top of my head.
These are the guys or people that make a difference.
But also remember, yeah, that's true. And we've got to say thank you to volunteers over and over again. And volunteers who feel they're not being thanked should start by thanking someone else. And that gets a thank you culture going, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And how about stepping up to protect the person, getting a little bit of unfair criticism? But one of the things in our system, which I think is the same in Australia, I don't know, is the 10 players in the team pay for the travel and accommodation of the coach, the team manager.
Yep.
Okay. They pay a 10th share of that collective cost. We're doing our best to bring in money to help with that, but that's what you get when you have it. The qualification to be team manager shouldn't just be because you're someone's dad or mum.
Yeah.
It should be about your willingness to do a job based on a clear job description, and also remembering you represent the association.
Yeah. So anyway, guys,
humiliation, Howie.
No.
What was
We're
that?
not like that. Claude and I are not like that. Now, Claude was an Olympian. He represented the Olympic Games. He was there. Yep. And Claude and I spoke. Well, actually, Claude spoke to everyone about the uniforms.
The uniforms.
The whole experience.
Do you remember? Yeah. Do you remember, Cosy?
Very clearly.
Tell us that story, man. Just tell us the.
But Claude.
Oh, mate, I always cry when I tell that story. I get really upset.
Yeah, Claude called you out. Really simple. That made a difference. You did something, Claude. You did something.
I was probably 22 years old, 21 years old. The Olympic uniforms came, and they were the field hockey uniforms that didn't work for our sport. They were crap. And the Olympic Committee didn't care, and the governing body, exactly. The governing body, Skate Australia, didn't care either, because they clearly hadn't bothered to brief the Olympic Committee on what was required, which was a football uniform. So I got on the telephone, called up Football Australia or whatever it was called at the time, had a chat to their CEO, who gifted us 2 sets of home and away uniforms, as I recall, and then got on the phone to the suppliers of the skating rink I ran and got Coca-Cola to make water bottles and various other things, and got them to the team so they were properly attired. And in exchange for that, and fun enough, I was packing up some stuff from my parents' moving house in Brisbane back in June. I have a stick which was signed by the entire Australian Olympic roller hockey team, which is sitting with my possessions in Brisbane, ready to be exported to Australia, unless I can sell it to someone in Australia at a good price. It'll be the only one in existence. It was a fire stick, whatever one that was. Was that your memory of it, Claudio, or I missed something?
No. You're pretty spot on. You're pretty spot on. I told Steve the story. I said, we ended up with these things, and all of a sudden, Cosy just starts calling people, and he organized the Socceroo stop. I mean, obviously, you went and did your thing, and I was unaware of exactly who you were calling and who you were getting in contact with. All I just remember was you came back and said, "I've got this." So
I remember how depressed the players were too at the time, right?
Yeah, we were sort of like, we were shocked. He said, "Look, crap! It was just like a polo. It was just like a proper polo top, like
It feels like they'll be the outcasts. The Olympic more like it was the outcasts.
Well, they were the sport that the Australian Olympic Committee didn't want to go, right? That's why the poor treatment of the team took place by Coates, because he didn't want them to be there in the first place. And let's remember, the reason roller hockey was included in the Barcelona Olympics is because Juan Antonio Samaranch, the retiring president of the Olympic Committee, was the goalkeeper for Barcelona. And from Barcelona goalkeeper, he became mayor of Barcelona. He ran roller skating in Spain and then got on the Olympic Committee through roller skating. And it was his golden handshake goodbye.
Which is fantastic for our community.
I don't want to pour water on a parade too much, but give up on the Olympics.
Yeah.
Give up. Get crowds in locally to watch you play hockey, because the only way to get in the Olympics is bums on seats that generate spectator dollars and sponsor dollars. If you do not get thousands of people to your games in at least a dozen countries, you will never get in the Olympics.
Exactly right.
So
Olympics is a different agenda.
Start with the end in mind, right? Sorry, I've got to throw this one in too, mate. So one sec.
All right.
I notice that people seem really proud when they say how there's no spectator charge at competitions. In my book, it's the height of stupidity, right? If you don't charge for spectators to get into your competitions, you're not focused on getting spectators, which means you've accepted the players are going to pay for everything forever. Once you start focusing on getting spectators, as you'll see England doing from March for its national leagues, where we let the players play for free and the spectators where we're going to recover our money from, you build an audience, the politicians want to come. When the politicians comes, the grants come. When the audience comes, the sponsors come, right? That's how you get in the Olympic Games.
Yeah.
Go for it. Show me the skateway pick.
I hear, but I just want to. Like we've talked about England, we've talked about Europe, we've talked about Australia. So we'll bring it a little bit back to you, buddy.
Yeah.
Talk to us about this place.
Is that your Ford XB there?
No, mate. My first car was funny enough, a Tirana LX in the same color, and the spot that car's parked in is the general manager's spot, which I used to regularly go and park over the top of Ashley Easterby.
I don't think you could drive a manual car, Kos, could you?
It was 3 on the tree.
Oh well, they have a clutch, right? So could you drive it?
Of course, it had a clutch.
I had an LX Tirana.
Driving before you stop sucking your thumb, Stephen Hoey.
But you had 2 right feet.
Anyway, what's the question?
Tell us about Skateway. This is iconic. Like, tell us about what this place means to you. I want to hear a little bit about it.
This was my dad, my family's biggest risk, right? In the mid 70s, Dad commissioned the building of the biggest skating center in the Southern Hemisphere and the biggest single pour concrete slab in the Southern Hemisphere at that point, which was done by Hutchinson Builders, who've moved on to big things. They had to re-pour the concrete slab a second time, and the steel for the facility stayed on the ground for over a year because of general strikes going on in Australia. So it stretched the family finances right out. But on opening, it had 2,000 to 2,500 people on a Friday night and a Saturday night. It was possibly I think it was the most successful skating center in Australia from a pure financial performance point of view. When I ran it in the 90s, it was skating somewhere around 2,000 kids a week. Really? There were strong rules in place, which other skating centers at the time didn't feel were necessary. We had strong marketing programs.
What's the rule that no cravat had?
No sucking face on the side of the rink with the girl or boy or whatever. No smoking.
Definitely not coming there.
Dad put in place rules.
When Les was there, he wasn't coming there.
My dad put in place rules in the 60s in our skating rinks. I think he had a lot of them around Australia at one point, where no smoking inside, no spectators if your kid isn't skating, stuff like that. Things that would be normal today.
Yeah, no sucking face.
But it was big. It was a big part of my childhood, and probably the saddest thing I ever did was the day we closed it, before it became a bingo hall, was to sell off all the things in it, the skates to Renee, as I recall, and he got a good deal, and then turn off the lights for the last time and lock the door.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, some of those skates ended up at Camberfield. It was for Camberfield.
Well, Eddie Carrion used to take fantastic care of them. In fact, just in there, a bit of a shout out to Eddie. You were talking about him before. That man has literally recruited thousands of people to the various roller sports.
Yeah.
Thousands. And lots of players that got predated on by other clubs to go and play for them after he recruited them. Right? In Australia, that man deserves respect. And what you do with the Les Carrion Award, by association, the family, I think is a real credit. I think it should continue and be done more.
No, mate, that means a lot to Claude and I. Obviously, the three of us are very connected to that family and what that means. And if you could see my garage up here, I've got a photo of good old Lester up there with myself when we were in Rome many years ago. And
wait there.
Hey?
You said wait there.
But
what other photos have you got?
That's up in your garage, Steve. Is a hoodie that I snaked last time I came to visit you.
That's right.
That's when Kos turned up and just slept on my couch. But anyway, now Kos,
dream.
Yeah. So we want to talk to you a little bit about as as a player, right? Now, how would you describe? Like, let's go back to the junior days, right? Do you remember yourself as a junior and a Queensland player? I mean, we all hit the ceiling. We all hit the ceiling at some point, right?
What do you mean?
we all. But can you talk to us a little bit about your junior career?
I presume you're going to get to be missing the big penalty against New South Wales at the Australian Championship, right?
No, I'm just asking you a question.
Well, here's a good lesson for you. Here's a good lesson for kids, right? When I started that competition that I've just referred to, I was a starting 4 player in a team coached by Eddie Carrion. And in the first match, in the first 5 minutes, my shoelace came undone. That's right. Wow. Can you send me that, please, mate? Wow. My shoelace came undone. It wasn't that team that we're talking about the incident of, but it's close enough. My shoelace came undone.
Well, Claude and I use hockey skates, so we turn up. I don't know if you wear shoes when you play hockey.
All right. My lace came undone, okay? My lace came undone, and it was before I tied the proper knots. I'm never going to get it out, am I? So my lace came undone. It was before I tied the proper knots that stopped the lace going into the wheels because of the way you do the knotting. And Eddie took me off, right? And I didn't get back on onto the grand final. And in the grand final, I had to take a penalty and a sudden death penalty. I did get my main penalty. And in the last penalty of the penalty shootout, I topped the ball. And it's in front of about 1,500 people, as I recall, because me and Les and my team were handing out flyers at Strathfield or somewhere like that near Homebush, where it was. And I topped the ball, and it just rolled along the ground, and obviously we lost. But I did get selected in the Australian junior team with Les. And Les missed a similar penalty at the end of that competition.
Oh, really?
And I was the only happy person.
And what year was that, Kossie? What year was that?
Oh, I must have been all of 15 or 16. So
where's this photo? Where's this photo? What's this team?
So
what
from left to right.
Quite a strapping young man there, Kos. Quite a physique.
Say again?
You're quite the physique. Quite a strapping young man.
Indeed.
Look at you.
The guy on the left is John Rickonen, Chris Thompson, Jeff Williams, me, and the guy from Stafford, Enright, Paul Enright. Les Carrion below Paul Enright. The guy in the middle, I can't remember the name. Do
you recognise this? That's Les in the cage.
Yes, I'm saying that's Les.
Yeah, no, I don't know if Claude recognise. I don't think Claude. Do you recognise that's Les?
No, I can't make out his face.
That's Les.
Yeah, that was Les.
Oh wow!
Wow. There would have been under 15s there, I'd say.
All right, I was going to say. So what? So that would have been about 1983 or 84 or maybe.
Probably the 70s.
No, wait a second. No, if you're saying 12 or 13, that would have been about 86.
No. I'd say that was, maybe something like that. It doesn't matter really now, but that's, But basically, most of that team was Mount Gravatt with 3 players from somewhere else.
Yeah.
So Leslie was playing in the cage, was he?
Yeah, he was a good goalkeeper, but he got frustrated, and I guess similar to Nick, got frustrated my brother being frustrated being a goalkeeper, so became a floor player because he was sick of copping goals because there was no defense in front of him.
Yeah.
Right? And the goalkeeper's lot in life is very frustrating. They're the only position on the floor where their mistakes get put on a board, and people forget that the goal only got scored because it got past 4 players that were in front of them.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
What are the photos you got there, Steve? What is this?
I've just found, I don't have the best photos. I'm not sure exactly what they are, but let's talk about
But before, I know who they are, but who have we got here?
Stephen Capel on my left and John Hughes on my right.
Yeah.
Now,
and I remember how old I used to think John was at the time.
Who's that guy in the middle?
That's me.
Oh, really? Well, you're wearing about 30 kilos lighter then.
I was going to say, have you got a blood nose?
What's that?
I've broken my nose 7 times, Claudio Munoz, as you are fully aware. Right?
Why me?
Is this the moment where I remind Stephen Hoey I took him to the dentist to get his teeth fixed after you knocked them out? That's
That's a
I
different
don't know what
story.
you're talking about. That's a different story, man.
Well, I can fight fire with fire.
But do you recall this competition? Do you remember this?
Was that Albury?
I don't know. I just can't.
If I see the rest of the team, I'd probably remember, but it doesn't look like a Queensland rink from the background.
Yeah. Okay. And John
that
Hughes
was a very old Mount Gravatt shirt.
Was it? Was that Mount Gravatt? Was it?
Yeah, but it must have been around the late 80s because those gloves with the clouds on it came out just before the Olympics a couple of years before.
Actually. You're right. That's right. That's
Good eye for detail there. Yeah.
That's what I do, mate. That's why I'm an information junkie.
You're right. I was a little bit concerned. So I wasn't quite sure if that was a mo or not.
What do you mean?
Sure.
Kind of like, is this a haircut? Right?
I think it could have just been a shadow.
Yeah,
right? It could have been a shadow. So then I just wanted to make sure.
Who's that?
Who's in these photos, Stephen? That's a thin Hayden Butler. Hayden Butler is the only person I've ever seen score a goal in a game with an overhead slam.
And whose eyeballs can we see there on the corner?
Is that
Red eye.
Peter? Is that Peter, the goalkeeper, Stephen?
I'm not sure.
He just announced he's getting married. Pete Holmes, who's getting married.
Is it really?
He announced it yesterday or the day before.
Peter Holmes?
Yeah.
That's not Peter Holmes, though, is it?
Holmesy?
That's not Holmesy. That's not Holmesy, is it?
Oh, Warren Middlebrook, the goalkeeper. That's who.
All right, so wrong goalkeeper.
I don't know, mate. There's limited information here, but I think Hayden would love to see himself that thin. He'd love that photo.
Well, I'm a little bit surprised at how thin you were, buddy.
Yeah. I'm trying, man. I'm losing weight. I'm only 95 kilos now.
Do you recall when this photo was taken?
No idea. No memory.
But at least you used to play, right? How would you describe yourself as a player?
Me?
Yeah.
I was a defender.
Was that because you couldn't get past the halfway line? Or is that because you're just a bit of a, defender?
No, I felt a responsibility to stop the goals being scored. And then when there were people like you on my team who wanted to showboat, someone had to come correct the mistakes.
Steve told me your best position was left, right out.
Right out. It happens.
Yeah.
It happens.
Yeah,
but you know what?
Right
I'll tell you what. As I was discussing the other day with Carlos Amaral, the England coach, when I sat my time on the bench, I shut my mouth and I'm not sitting there going, put me on. I sit there cheering my team. And when I get my go, I'll do my best not to come off. Right? But till then, you're part of the team and you cop it, right? No, I don't know when this was. Do you know when it was, Stephen?
No, I don't. I honestly don't know. I've actually got some old albums of lying around and stuff like that. And I just coincidentally came across this recently. And I thought, that's a good photo, of good old Kos, when he was a player.
We know it was pre-22.
It might
I
be.
shaved that thing off my face. Huh?
Yeah. Sorry, say again?
But I shaved that thing off my face when I was 22. So it was.
Seriously, Kos didn't look that bad.
No, I don't know what Steve's gone about. I look handsome.
I know, you look quite handsome, actually. Do you ever consider yourself like a James Bond sort of guy?
Always. 00 Kos.
00 Kos. Any other photos there, Steve?
Oh, God. Oh, my God.
Hey, mate, I spent enough time as an account manager dealing with crap in bars from clients, mate. It's like a stand-up comic being ready for a heckler. Come on.
Now, I don't really have too many other photos to share because unfortunately you're not really that active in that sort of regard that I can actually find them, right?
I avoided them as a kid.
Yeah, I know you must have. But sort of just reflecting here, you're giving out some medals, you got the Harry High pants on, but that's okay, I think they're coming.
But I'd point out I'm wearing the Australian shirt
I
at an
know.
English event.
Where's this?
That would have been that guy there's name's Rick Wadsworth. He played in England under 17s, and he's used to play for a club called Letchworth. And I think from memory, he's a Formula One mechanic now. I'm not sure.
Oh, wow.
It's that sort of area of the country, or certainly in motorsports. And I was handing out trophies on, that would have been Cup Finals Day, probably when I was marketing or competition secretary.
Right. So that
So
was in England.
organising competitions is a separate role in England to refereeing and the rules.
Right. That must have been quite difficult breaking into the English rink hockey, roller hockey community, or those people, right? Because I can imagine, right? They're a bit rusted on, like we are. Claude and I are rusted on, and other people were like, we're invested. And you got this guy coming from Australia. And let's be honest, guys, you have an opinion. You're very strong in that opinion. You're willing to get in there and go. Let's have an honest conversation. And that must have been pretty tough cracking into that, right?
Look, and Claudio there came from Chile, probably with limited English. I can't recall, but probably with limited English at the time. So his lot in life as a migrant is different. Is going to be far harder than anything I had to experience in England, speaking the English language. Yeah, but one of the things I noticed in hockey in England, and I also notice it in Australia as well, and I think it's prevalent everywhere, is that there seems to be an attitude of people involved in hockey that if you haven't been around for 20 years, you couldn't possibly know what you're talking about. And it's not welcoming to new parents or new players who turn up. And that's to our detriment, because the ideas and skills that people can bring from running a local rugby club, cricket club, tennis club, football club, whatever, can actually drive our sport forward. My personal experience when I got to England, I went and I played. And when I went to referee and volunteered to referee, and Rene Munoz taught me how to referee. Rene, who was looking after referees at an international level, taught me to speak while refereeing. I think I'm a pretty decent referee. I volunteered a referee and try and get some games in the England Premier League. And for months, they wouldn't use me because I wasn't one of the faces. Right. Yeah. And then one day, Herne Bay United in the South versus Hitchin, and nobody wanted to referee the game because they used to turn into bloodbaths. I get a call saying, would you do that game? So out of my accreditation not being respected from Australia to, yes, you can do the top level of competition between the top two teams. Yeah. I went down there and my refereeing partner wasn't there, so I had to do the whole game by myself. In the first 5 minutes, one of the Herne Bay players punched, who was a policeman, if I recall, punched one of the Hitchin players right square in the face and knocked him on his flat on his backside. Right? And I had to do the whole game. Luckily, because I knew the Hitchin guys and the Herne Bay guys, I was just very clear what wouldn't be tolerated and issued the cards as you're properly meant to. They accepted me. The 500 people who were booing and hissing who paid to get in at Herne Bay at the time, bit different. And then after that, I kept on refereeing games in Herne Bay because I was the willing person to go from London the 2-hour drive down. Yeah.
No, it's amazing, mate. It's amazing. And it's a hard, we take our hat off to you because you've persevered, right? You're like others but not many others, but others that just goes, you're in it for the sport, right? And we can be polarizing from time to time and we piss people off and we don't always include everyone and whatever, right? It's really hard, right? It's bloody hard, but mate, for what it's worth, I take my hat off to you, buddy, because you do what it takes in the best interest of the sport, and you're open to have the conversation. Yeah, you're open to have the dialogue. You're open to have the debate. You're open to have the to be challenged. So Steve, good on you, mate.
Steve, just that's cool, and I appreciate that. It's really kind of you both. But let's look at it also from another perspective, mate. I learned to use Excel because I wanted to run roller hockey competitions. I learned to use Word because I wanted to run roller hockey competitions. I traveled the world because I went to roller hockey competitions. I got to see more than most Australians on the planet and meet people from other places because I was involved in roller hockey. I got far more from roller hockey than I've ever given it. Yeah. Right. And sometimes when I talk and see senior players, and I remember conversations with Les Carrion, I think you were involved in one of these once as well. When we were kids, we had seniors who, once they finished playing the game, just quit and ran away. They did nothing. They didn't run a club. They didn't coach. They didn't referee. Nothing. They took and ran. And because they paid to go play for Australia or their state, they felt that was self-justified.
Yeah.
Right. And Les and I promised each other that when we became old, old, we weren't going to do the same thing.
A bit better than others, let's just say.
Yeah.
Anyway,
well, speak for yourself, guys.
Let's see you going the longest silver fox. But we promised each other we wouldn't just quit. We contribute something back. My son doesn't want to play roller hockey. It's not his thing. Okay. Yeah. But that's cool. He gets that it's my thing. Yeah. But I think what we got to do is, as older players with a lot more experience in the game than many others have, we should share it openly, but also accept new people in and be prepared to change our thinking.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? It's critically important.
Absolutely.
Don't be big fish in a small pond.
Exactly right. No, I'm with you, and Claude's with you, and we talk about this. The sum of all parts is greater than the individual, right? So England, Australia, we've been sort of separate, but I think we have an opportunity to unite even more. New Zealand and Australia, we have a great relationship, and we're building on that. We always have, And mate, we're gonna wrap up because we'll be here. The three of us will talk till midnight, right? So we don't want to do that. But I started the promotion on bringing you on tonight with a photo, right? I'm just going to share it now, which is which you're familiar with. But it actually is. I look at this and go, this is actually a really good representation, right, of tonight's conversation, right? There's
that's in Japan,
Macau.
Oh, Macau, was it?
In Macau, there's obviously myself. There's Les and there's yourself with an England t-shirt, right? So, united. But really keen to hear how you feel about, what do you feel when you see that photo?
Oh, man. I reminisce. My life went in a path that I didn't expect it would go, Steve. I never expected to live in England or to have kids in Europe. There's elements of I've missed a lot of things in Australia while I've been gone and what I could have done to help. There's obviously the personal relationships, but also happy to see my friends, other than the fact that just before that, you asked me what was growing from the side of my head. So I had to get a mole removed a couple of weeks later. It was just like, thanks, man. I really appreciate that. It was a good thing. And I, as I recall, I remember I helped when Australia played England. And Carlos Amaral let me coach the team against Australia, and I kept on instructing the English to rip Danny Falabella's bandana off his head.
Anyway, I don't think he watches the station.
Good memories, mate. Good memories. Great memories we had in our teens and early 20s. Now, as older people, we got relationships. Now let's use them, right? And let's bring other people into that relationship. Everybody I've ever met anywhere on the planet involved in hockey, bar a few, want to help us. But we got to help ourselves first.
Exactly right. Exactly
and
right.
If we have common issues, which we do, let's share how we resolve them and collaborate. If you don't have, I'm really lucky in England, mate. I got the best executive committee I could have ever hoped for. It didn't start that way. It's grown that way. I work hard. They work hard. Every person on that committee does more than 20 hours a week for roller hockey. Some do 40 to 60, right? But it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, but we're determined to make it easier for the next people. Electronic systems, automation, pay with your own credit card. So it simplifies things at the club level. But also let's have reports that actually mean something rather than nonsense that executive officers tend to write. Everything's fine when it's not. Let's be fact-driven.
Yeah, exactly right. No, you're right.
If you ever want our head of referees or coaching on your program, let me know. We can organize it. And
Now,
they're
Kos,
probably the closest people to be able to share a similar experience to Australia.
we've consumed an enormous amount of your time. We know that you're really busy doing nothing. So
It's how things get done, right? By the boss doing nothing.
Yeah, exactly right. But we do appreciate it, mate. And it's been great. Obviously, we're very close in for those who don't know us. So, mate, we do appreciate your insights and your your contribution to what you're doing, not only in England, but also I suppose, paving a way, right, for what we're trying to do as a community, right? And it might be one person, it'll be the collective. You're involved, we're involved, others are involved, so stuff like that. So, mate, thanks for coming on and being available. I know that tonight you probably had Ali McBeal TV sort of scheduled or whatever it is that you watch.
I'm Netflixed out, mate. I'm up to date with everything that's ever played on the platform.
And, mate, we're going to put you back on the jet. We're going to fly you back home, right?
Mm-hmm.
And, mate, we'll chat soon, okay, buddy?
Save a few bucks. Just send me business class, okay?
Yeah, right. We will. No, seriously, because thanks, mate. Thanks for your time.
See you, Claudio.
Get
that takeover of the program done. Needs a new host.
I know.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
See you, guys.
See you, buddy. See you, buddy. Kos is up the front of the bus now. He's having a couple of Jack Daniels.
I know.
3 shots. I just gotta,
Seriously, man, I need a scotch or something, man.
That's the Kos guy, right?
How long is his bloody flight?
I don't know.
It's a long flight.
Let's just say Kos will be drinking the bar dry.
Yeah.
Without a doubt, right? He's actually got he can actually do that, actually. He's actually got a bit of a tank on him in relation to that.
No, but in all seriousness, I appreciate his time, man. I mean, I find myself just he's got a way of being able to talk, he can talk. Kos can talk, huh?
He can talk
He'll talk a what?
The leg of a chair. Yeah, I know.
And, no, but I mean, and then I just can't help myself just to sort of be intrigued and just listen to the story,
Yeah.
He's and he's like a great storyteller,
Yeah, absolutely. And he's a deep thinker when it comes to rink hockey, right, or roller hockey. He's not thinking. He's not talking based on an opinion that he's just formed right now. He's thought about that opinion and he's deeply thought about it. And he can be challenged, and he's willing to be challenged. And he goes, "Okay, well, maybe I'm okay with it," but he thinks about it, and that's good, And he's the president of the English Roller Hockey Committee, right? So that in itself is great, So it's interesting to hear what's happening in Europe. You got the European Union, what's happening there with the hockey. There's just stuff happening. So, we're joining dots, aren't we? New Zealand, we had Russell last week. We've got Kos this week. We're trying to get Jamie to hear what's happening in his space in Western Australia next week, I hope.
Yeah, and hopefully we can get the dynamic duo, how we call them, Benny and Chris.
Well, we've got a 6-episode contract with Roller Hockey Australia, right?
I know.
It's the pilot series. We've got 2 episodes left. I don't know if Roller Hockey Australia is going to keep funding this production. But we've got 2 episodes left. Let's hope that we can get Jamie and Chris and Benny on. And we can talk a little bit more about roller hockey from their perspective, have a bit of a laugh. But anyway.
Yeah. So we call it a night, man. Do we call it a night?
Hats off to Kos. Hats off to Kos.
I know.
He shared a lot of information.
Yeah, I know, man. I know. A lot. And like I said to you before, appreciate his time, and I really like that how we were sort of touching on the on the academy, the hockey academy that they're running and stuff like that.
Yeah. I think that's fantastic. They're doing a heap of great work there.
Yeah.
Which I think is awesome as well.
Yeah.
I do want to show you something before we timed out, but I can't find it, so maybe we'll keep it to next week.
What was it?
I just can't seem to. Hang on, let me just bear with one sec.
Be a little bit patient.
Hey?
Have a bit of patience.
You need some patience?
No, I'm saying you're going to me. Have a little patience.
A little bit of patience. No, I just wanted to show you this thing. Just hang on a tick. Let's see if I can find. I don't know if this link is going to work. Just bear with me. What's that do there if I watch that? I'm trying to bring this up. So this is just a little bit of something that I was just thinking about you. I was just thinking, I've got to show Claude this. I don't know if you've seen it. Oh, actually, hang on. Yep, I've got it. Bear with me. Oop. Nah.
Man, who's your editing guy, man?
Have you ever? Let's hang on, tick. Just hang on.
I don't. What are you doing?
I just want to close off with this. Bear with me. May or may not have seen this. Have you seen this?
Wait a second.
Have you seen this? Can you see this?
What is this cricket? Yeah.
Can you see cricket?
Yeah, but what are you showing?
I want to show you this. Hang on a sec. Let's just. I don't know if this works or not. Hang on a sec. Just watch this for a second. I think this is you and your mates. Just hang on a sec.
Are you being silly?
No. Watch this. This is some local cricket, right? This guy hits the ball. He gets run out. The guy with the cat gets run out, right? He's pissed off.
No, it's not working.
Did that come through?
No, I missed it. Did he throw the bat at him?
Hit this guy on the head. Hang on.
You got to play it again. Where'd you get this from? All right, I want to say this is better. Your internet's a little bit average.
Okay, wait. What's the guy in the cat?
Okay, yeah.
He just got bowled out. He just got run out.
Yeah. He's walking in the middle. But I've missed it. I've missed it again. It's missed it again. What are you doing?
Can't you see that?
I haven't seen it, but I've missed. So what does he do? The guy in the cap walks through the middle, throws his bat. Does he get the other guy on the head?
I'm gonna play it one more time and then I'll fucking.
Oh, come on, man!
Look,
missed it again. Well, go back a bit more.
Okay, last time.
Go back a bit more.
I'm back heaps.
Okay, here what? Yep. Run out. It's frozen. Okay, wait, yeah. Oh, wait a second. I can see him swinging. It's frozen. I missed it again.
Oh, mate. That's terrible.
I've missed it again. So what's he done? He's just like taking a swing at it.
It is just going in the head. Pretty much
his own player.
No, he's not the batsman. Anyway, bit of a laugh. I wanted to show you that.
Yeah.
Yeah, they just couldn't stop laughing for whatever reason. So anyway, good to catch up. Good to chat with Kos. Good to get a bit of some feedback from a few bods online as well.
Yeah. Hopefully, I had a few people there. We were able to entertain a couple. So talk about a little bit of hockey and open people's eyes and sort of like, can we do something? Can we help with something? Maybe we can try something. We should do something. Just do something.
Just do something. Just do something.
You know what I mean?
And just do something. Contribute. Just do something. Nothing's bad,
Yeah.
As long as you're doing something,
I know we're in different.
Just let those that are leaning in get on with it,
I know we're in difficult stages at the moment, but you just think something can still be done.
Yeah.
All right, buddy. Look, I mean, we're gonna call it a night, but hopefully next week we could have JR from Dallas.
JR, I hope so. I've been trying to track him down. He's in.
He's hard there. He's
traveling. He's FIFO, whatever you want to call it. He's in and out.
Mate, because Western Australia. Because Western Australia don't want to be part of Australia anymore, and they're just like they've locked everyone out. JR has locked us out.
I think he thinks that he might catch COVID from him.
I know. I'll have to show him that I'm double vaxxed. Yeah, and then hopefully we're going to put the call out to Benny Backhand Weber.
We're going to get Benny on and hear about. We're going to talk a few about the stories that we've got with Benny. Benny has been a legend within our sport. He's done so many things, and Chris. So anyway, that's our challenge. If we can get him on,
we're going to talk about that time that he almost had like a heart attack from laughter
in Macau.
You remember? Was he there? He was almost on the floor. We're gonna ask him if he remembers.
I'm a little bit concerned that whether or not the license of his backhand, if he registered that backhand or not. We'll have to ask him. It
was trademark. And we're gonna ask him what type of tree it was, because didn't he just like break a branch
and cut out a hockey stick?
Yes. Yeah.
Oh God. Anyway, right.
We're done. Mate.
Had a good one. Right, bud. I'll chat to you soon.
Catch you, mate. See you later.
Bye.
See you, everyone.